Hi Cancer, welcome to The Modern Spiritualist. My name is Raheem. Today we're going to look at February. For you guys, you can use this for Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And I did a Celtic Cross spread for this month, plus an Oracle card as a general theme to weave all these cards together. So let's get started. Looks like a lot on your plate. I know that last month was January. The reading was a lot. So let's see here. Looks like some good shifts have happened. So good work. I'm going to start with the Threads of Fate Oracle card, and I pulled Trust. It came out in the reverse. This is about self-trust. We talked about that a bit last month, I think. But it feels like there's a new access to it. It feels like the work you did in January is absolutely fueling the work you're doing this month. It feels like in a lot of ways you've kind of blossomed inside yourself. And so now you can rely on this renewed sense of self-trust that you didn't have access to previously. And that's what's going to propel you forward. Although I think this month is more about healing than taking action. We'll see as I get into this. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of healing work to do this month. And it's all going to be based on this renewed sense of self-trust. So really important, really, really big theme here. And the center, multiple cards flew out, so I just kind of went with them all. So your starting place, moving into the Celtic Cross spread, here we have two cards. We have the Eight of Wands, and we have the Prince of Cups. They're both in reverse. Let's start with the Eight of Wands. I feel like you're just keeping things close to you, to your heart right now, because you may just be going through some really vulnerable processing. So that being the case, I think that's okay. Don't feel like you need to speak on anything to the people in your life if it doesn't feel safe to, or it feels like you don't have the bandwidth, or if it feels like you don't have the clarity, right? So that's all fine. My concern is keeping it to yourself out of fear, and rather than for safety or for processing or whatever. It feels like some of you may be keeping it to yourself in a way that doesn't serve you, because it just feels like you can't speak on it, or there's just kind of this like tight lipping thing happening. There is a confusing energy to it, like it doesn't feel quite clear, and so I get the sense that maybe that's where you're at, like there's not a lot of clarity, and maybe that's partly why you're not speaking, but I also think not speaking is contributing to that lack of clarity. And so if you can, I would maybe speak to somebody you trust if that really just doesn't feel like you can do that right now, because you're just in a place where you can't for whatever reason. Then don't feel any pressure to, but if that's the case, you need to do something else with it. You need to direct the energy so that you don't explode, so because it just feels kind of volatile. It feels like you're holding a lot of anger, and just emotions that are offsets of anger, really kind of fiery, explosive, intense emotions, and you can't keep that all inside yourself. You will explode eventually, and so, or stagnate. And so that's what we want to avoid. I mean, you're not in stagnation, but we want to avoid that down the road, and we want to avoid being in too much discomfort, and we want to avoid an explosion. And so what I would recommend, if you really feel like you can't talk to other people about whatever it is that you're going through, that you either write, like keep a journal, or if you don't like handwriting, just do it on a Google Doc or something, the Notes app on your phone, something, and just start to write out what you're feeling and thinking and dealing with. Because I think that will bring you the clarity that you need, and help you create an outlet for all of that emotional energy. And so, while I think that another person is great because they can reflect back to you what you're saying, and in that way you can get clarity, and validation, or a reality check if that's what you need. But if you can't do that, you need to find another way for things to reflect back to you, or for you to process. And so don't get stuck in them by keeping them to yourself. Channel it through writing, channel it through an art practice if you have one, if you're a musician, if you're an artist. I know a lot of Cancers are visual artists. Then channel it that way. What else? Or if you have a martial arts practice or some sort of body movement practice, that will help as well. I also think that just getting a healing of some sort will be really helpful. I think I mentioned that last month too, maybe. Getting some sort of healing, whether it's like Reiki, a massage, shamanic work, something that just kind of resets your energy system, because it just feels like you're a little bogged down right now. And that's fine. You just need to find a way to clear it out. Okay. Prince of Cups reversed as well. This is about stuck emotion that you're not expressing. So yeah, this is kind of reflecting what I've already said. And see if there's more information. It feels like you're really not in a position to talk, so you are gonna have to do something else to get it out of you. And so yeah, it looks like a creative practice, a journal practice, or some sort of healing work or movement practice will take care of that. So let's see what's crossing that energy. We have the Emperor and the Five of Swords. Okay. I think I covered this a little bit last month too as well, about being in your power and your personal authority. And I can feel that you're reaching for it, like you're trying to get here. And maybe a lot of the emotions that you're dealing with here are feelings from the past that made you feel disempowered. And that could even be part of feeling powerless, is feeling like you can't express your emotions in a healthy way, or confide in others, or move them out, or whatever. All water signs can have a tendency, especially if there's a lot of trauma, to get stuck in this pattern of excessively feeling the emotions, whatever they are, but not actually clearing them out. And so, I mean, unlike earth or air signs, where the tendency is to separate from the emotions entirely and not dealing with them, the flip side of that I see with water and fire signs is an over-identification or a fixation on the emotions. So you're feeling them, but you're not actually moving them. They're just kind of spiraling or cycling or circling, rather than being directed out of you and released. And so I think that may be what's happening here. Like you're in a bit of an emotional loop. And I think those emotions relate to feelings of disempowerment. And I think that may be contributing to the loop, because part of the loop is feeling like you can't express yourself emotionally in an authentic way that people respond to. Maybe that's partly the reason why you feel like you can't talk to others, because it's like, oh, people don't respond well to me. That is definitely a belief that is happening to some of you. That hit really hard. And so what's the belief there? The belief that people don't respond well to your emotional authenticity. You could do some digging there to figure out what the source of that trauma is. And that might help you release it. But I mean, either way, it is a belief. Like, you can release these emotions, but you're not going to release them by stewing in them. And so doing something proactive with them, writing, creating art, moving your body, that is going to, that is what's going to actually help you move the emotional energy out and process them appropriately. Because you don't have to confide in another person to process these things. It's helpful, but if you're not in a position where you can do that, there are things you can do by yourself that are effective. So that's about stepping in your personal power too. Stepping up in your empowerment and saying, I can deal with this. I have what it takes to deal with this and to really create shift and movement and healing, right? So I think the intense work that you're going through right now is to get you into a place where you feel your personal power. And so that's the struggle here, is right now you may be feeling the lack thereof, and that's only to direct your attention to the ways that you don't have access to your personal power. Not that you don't have it, everyone has personal power, but the ways that you feel you don't have access, releasing the emotions and the beliefs that are in the way of that access so that you can have access to them. And that is a really, really challenging process. that we all go through at some point on some level. And it's also one of the hardest because it's one of those things where it's kind of like when you're trying to get your first job, or something. Yeah, like you're trying to get your first job, but because it's your first job, nobody wants you because you don't have the experience. But it's like, how do you get the experience if you don't get the job? It's kind of like that energy. It's kind of really hard to break past. You gotta just keep consistently trying and then find your way in and start building from there. And so it's kind of like that. It's like this feeling of, I need my personal power, my empowerment, my personal authority to stand up and deal with these intense emotions. But I'm experiencing these intense emotions because I'm not in my personal power. So it's like this double-edged sword, right? And you needing to really work hard to figure out the window or the opening for you. And so I just want to validate that that's a tough process. It's a tough process, but there is a way out because people go through this kind of process all the time. And healing does occur. Shifts take place. Empowerment increases. You can do this, okay? And I think the biggest start is resourcing yourself well, finding an avenue for these emotions to leave. And it's going to be through some sort of expression, movement, healing, journaling, whatever. And if you would like a resource to some sort of healing, like if you know that you want or need a healing, but you don't know where to look, please reach out to me because I can direct you to something that will work for you, okay, depending on who you are and what you're dealing with. So yeah, please let me know. Or you can schedule a reading with me and we can work it out as well. Especially if you're afraid to confide in people in your life, it's what that's what I do. That's what I'm here for. So feel free to reach out and schedule a reading as well if you would like to. Okay, so the Emperor was paired with the Five of Swords, which kind of reflects the Five of Pentacles that you had in the center last month. I really remember that reading really well for whatever reason. Like, I'm really remembering that more easily than I remember most readings. So whatever you're dealing with is really real. That's just what I want to say there. What I'm getting is kind of the mind being the worst enemy here. So I really think you're brushing up against some really difficult limiting beliefs. I think those limiting beliefs are at war with your emotions. And I think maybe this is coming out of feeling like you don't have enough space. People aren't holding enough space for your emotions, or not necessarily other people, but just in general, there's not enough of a container for your emotions. And so that's tricky because I think what's happening here potentially, and this is really deep past childhood stuff probably, I think what's happening is you're having these intense emotions because you're not in your authenticity, because you feel afraid to be in your authenticity. It doesn't feel safe. That comes out of a childhood wounding. And God, this is deep. And so these emotions are coming up, and as they come up and get intense, your limiting beliefs start to try to stuff your emotions back down. And this is common. This is a really common ping pong in today's collective that you kind of have to go through if you want to achieve true emotional well-being. Like, you just have to go through this, and it sucks. I'm sorry. But you're a water sign. I mean, emotion is a strength for you. So if it's being stuffed down, it's in shadow. It's not serving you the way that it should be for a Cancer who is supposed to wield their emotions in this really beautiful way. Not that you don't on some level, but whatever the cycle is now, you're dealing with the parts of you that aren't. That's all. It's not like this is like you forever completely. It's just like the phase that you're in right now in terms of your soul's evolution. The parts of you that aren't operating on that high level are just the parts that you're dealing with. That's all. But all these other parts of you that are great are still functioning. I'm not saying that everything is bleak. It's just, this is the process that you're going through of healing, right? And these come in phases and spirals, and we never stop going through them, okay? So give yourself some credit, because I know this is hard work, and the fact that you're here doing it means you can handle it, and that is something to be proud of, okay? Okay, but back to what I was saying here, you're stuffing certain emotions down when they come up because of these limiting beliefs that are in play, and it's probably something from childhood, like you having intense emotions of some capacity, and someone in your life, most likely parents, but it could be any family, it could be teachers, it could even be peers or anybody else that was in your life that made an impression on you in your developmental years, that basically told you your emotions were irrational or not acceptable in some way. And so that's what your brain is doing to yourself. Like you're having these emotions, and then your brain is saying, stop feeling that, you're not supposed to feel that, this is stupid for you to feel that, or like rationalizing all these things, right? So that is keeping you stuck in this pattern, this emotional cycling, because the intense emotions come up and they're treated as a problem, like they're shamed in some capacity. And so that's when you get stuck because there's resistance happening, and you're not giving the emotions what they need. And so that's why they're continuing to cycle, because their needs aren't being addressed. If the needs of those emotions were being addressed, they would go away, they would subside, they would transform. And so I think the big task here is dismantling the beliefs that keep you out of true relationship with your emotions. And so I think the first step there would be to notice them. Notice when a belief comes up. Notice when you're beating your emotions up, or trying to rationalize them, or judging them, or shaming them, or telling them they're stupid, or like whatever the phrasing is in your head. Just identify them when they come up. Maybe write them down, like make a list of limiting beliefs, and you can cross them out and change them to affirmations. I guess an example would be like, say anger comes up, and the thought in your head is like, oh, you have no right to be angry. And that's a really important thing that I just said, because anger exists, like anger surfaces when a personal boundary has been crossed. And so I think you have no right to be angry is actually a really interesting phrasing, because you have every right to be angry because you're angry. You know, nobody gets to tell you that you shouldn't be angry. Nobody gets to do that. If you're angry, you're angry, right? And there's nothing wrong with anger. It's when anger is shoved down and not taken care of, it can turn into rage, and that is destructive. But anger itself is just saying, hey, a boundary's been crossed, I need you to fix it, right? And so so if you feel anger, and the thought that comes up is, you have no right to be angry, write down, I have no right to be angry, cross it out, and then right next to it, I have every right to feel anger whenever it comes up, or I think we can do better than that. It is on my personal authority, or on my personal empowerment to accept, feel, and address my anger. Something that gets you out of the limiting belief and into a better belief, and then you can just work with those affirmations. And anytime you hear the negative thought come up again, catch yourself in it, and then change it to the affirmation, and then just you can slowly rewire your brain that way, and that will start to create shift over time. So that's just an option. Okay, let's move on. Past affecting the present. We have the Nine of Cups. It's a great card. Let's see. Okay, these are dreams that didn't come true, joys or desires that weren't given enough appreciation or time or energy or celebration. I think this emotion thing that you're going through is twofold because of this card. Because all water signs feel very intensely, and depending on other placements, tend to express those emotions very intensely. And I think as children, water signs have a tendency to be shut down emotionally a lot, because not because there's anything wrong with them, but because our society don't know how to deal with them in a healthy way. I mean, most adults don't have a good relationship with their emotions, so that's what they pass on to their children, and I think that's what we're dealing with here, is You know, even the times when you were a child, most likely, where you were really excited, ecstatic, joyful, happy, I think even those were shut down because you were too loud or too much or something like that. That may be one of the limiting beliefs as well, is like you telling yourself that you're too much or that people can't handle you, or so that's a common one, actually. Especially in extroverts, emotional extroverts. Um, and so I think this is twofold because you're not letting the perceived negative emotions express themselves, like anger, sadness, whatever. But I feel like there's this sense of like not letting yourself feel joy either, and I think it comes out of deep, deep past. Um, and that could be because you were punished for being too loud or whatever. If that's not the case, it could be, oh, I had it and I lost it. Um, oh, yeah, it could be just because you're afraid to feel good. Because I think the fear may be that it's just going to loop right back into the negative emotions. And so it's like not wanting to feel happiness or joy because it's not going to last. Maybe it's just like the fear of, or if you haven't felt good in a long time, maybe the fear is, why would you now? Like being suspicious of feeling happy, or something like that. Or maybe there's just a huge disappointment that happened in your life, maybe semi recently, and you're just having a really hard time dealing with it and moving on. In which case, these emotions may be fresher, like they're not really old. I get from most of you that these are just really, really old, shoved down emotions that have just built over time. But if you've had a recent disappointment, this just could be you're processing something really big right now. And if that's the case, if something happened, some sort of event that you're struggling with, I'm here to support you. And I apologize for that. And in that sense, it's just going to be hard for a while, but you can't shove these emotions down. You're going to have to move through them so that you can fully move on. Healing work is not a joke, and it feels worse before it gets better often. But it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And it's just part of self-love is doing the hard things sometimes. Okay, in your foundation, we have the Temperance card. This has been haunting everybody this month. I've pulled this for like almost every sign so far. So this is what's going to ground you, keep you stable, keep you here, keep you in your body, keep you feeling safe this month. And you've already done a lot of good work. I know that January was a bit of a slog for you, and you're in a new place now. You're at a place where you've increased your sense of self-trust. That's partly why these emotions are coming up, because they trust you enough to come up, right? And so you're just dealing with the next wave now. So within that, I know you have more work to do, and I know you may be tired, and the emotions may be intense. I do feel just a lot of fear, but it's mostly just fear of yourself, which is good in a sense because you have all the power there. It's all inside you, and it hasn't killed you yet. It's going to continue to not kill you, probably. So, I think it's an okay place to be. Being afraid of yourself is better than something else out of your control, and so definitely lean on all the work you've already done. Celebrate the successes that you've already had, the healing that you've already accomplished, the increased sense of awareness that you have now, and the fact that you're at a place where you can really confront this, because what a powerful thing to be able to confront, to even be here, to be able to handle this without complete overwhelm is a job well done. So that's what you can lean on. Yes, there's more to go, and look at what you've already accomplished. Let me think what else is in here. Again, equal parts water and fire, and the synergy of the two. Water and fire are both emotional energies. Fire is just primal, and water is more heart-based. Both of those fields of emotion are a part of you, and they do have a relationship with one another, a symbiotic relationship, if you let them. And remember that there are gifts in these emotions. They are not by nature here to hurt you. I mean, what really hurts is the beliefs around them. Like, the shame itself is just shame, but what are you telling yourself about your shame? That's where we can really get stuck. So make sure that you allow your emotions to just be what they are without judgment or jumping to conclusions about them or thinking that they say something about you, because emotions are always in flux. When they're healthy, especially, there's always a flow. They fluctuate. That's emotional health, is fluctuation. Not necessarily big shows or displays of emotion that disrupt things. That's not healthy necessarily. I mean, kids do it and it's fine, because they're still learning how to express it in a healthy way, and usually we don't, and that's why we're here, right? But emotional fluctuation itself is not bad. It's a sign that your emotions are flowing because they're changing and morphing, and that's good. Emotions are ocean waves. They roll in, they come out. Each wave is a different water molecules. You know what I mean? Like, the ocean is vast and it's all the ocean, but they're all made of all these separate little water molecules. And when a wave hits, that's a totally different configuration of molecules. You know what I mean? Like, some recycle and hit again, but it's always a different manifestation of the same, right? So that's what emotions are like, as they should be. And so it's like, you don't want to stop the waves from hitting. You don't want to shame the waves for hitting, right? Like, that would be absurd, right? Like, going to the beach and a wave hits and you're like, shame on you, you shouldn't wave like that. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't do that to the ocean, so why do we do it to our emotions? You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Thoughts and emotions, of course, have a relationship with each other, but that's where either the dysfunction or the health is what is the relationship between your thoughts and your emotions. How are they playing with each other? Because you could have an emotion come up and just choose not to get into the thought that follows, because they are, thoughts are their own thing, emotions are their own thing, they affect each other. But you can have two totally different thought responses to the same wave of emotion. Sadness comes up and you can say, I see you, I accept you, I validate you, what do you need? Or you can say, no, you don't get to be sad. And then it just curls on itself and sits, right? So you haven't dealt with it, you've just shoved it aside. That's not how, you don't get to push emotions out of your field. If you're pushing emotions away, you're pushing them into you. That's just how it works. Because they need to express to come out, and they don't get to express if you push it away. So this is kind of like allowing yourself to be in the synergy of both your primal fiery emotions and your, watery, more heart-based emotions. Let them have a relationship with each other and drop the mind. And if you can't drop the mind, just notice what the mind is saying and change the mental dialogue, okay? And that's where you'll feel the safest, in that allowance. So that's the task here, is allowing them to be what they are. And that will make it less intense. They get intense like that because we're not hearing them. So it's like, if we can address them when they're whispers, like if we can address the wave when it's a ripple, then we don't have to address a tidal wave because it never gets there. You know what I mean? So just process all that. I know it's a lot that I'm saying. Crowning you this month, we have the Lovers. So this is your inspiration, your divine inspiration. And it's the Lovers. And this is about your relationship with yourself. This is about self-love. And a big part of self-love is self-acceptance. And that means accepting all the parts of you, even the parts that you've been taught to shame and judge. And so it's coming out of that shame, coming out of that judgment, and loving yourself enough to love all of it. All of it. Because it's all worthy of love. And maybe you just need a reminder of that as well. New circumstance. We have the King of Cups. So this is who you're becoming, and this is beautiful. This is somebody who is in total control of their emotions, not in the sense that they are stoic, but in the sense that they roll with the waves and they express them in healthy ways, healthy channels for them, talks about them in healthy ways, assesses them in healthy ways, meets their needs, etc. So this is who you're becoming, the King of Cups. Emotional intelligence at its best. Your ego this month. You're the Ace of Swords. Jim and I got this in the same spot too. New thoughts, new set of beliefs. Getting rid of all these Five of Swords beliefs that are really just stabbing you in the heart, and turning them into a new way of thinking, a new relationship between your mind and your emotions. And the Ace of Swords is pure potential. So you have the power here to create whatever belief system around your emotions you want. And so whatever feels good to you, in whatever way you want to think about your emotions or address them, this is like the green light to just restructure that. And it's really infinite. It's whatever is true to you. This is where you need to lean on the self-trust and your personal authority and say, okay, what do I want to think about my emotions? What do I want to believe about my emotions? And through trusting that inner voice, you're going to come up with the system that really works for you, the belief system that really works for you about your emotions. Environmental energy, we have the Six of Wands reversed. It's almost like I feel like the world has stopped. And it's a gift. So I think there's some grace here because you're dealing with such intense stuff. I think the grace period here is that maybe not a lot else is going on. Like you have the space. You don't have as much work to do. Maybe you don't have to see as many people. Maybe you don't have as much on your plate. And that standstill is so that you can focus on you. So lean into that. This is a gift. Hopes and fears this month. Four of Cups reversed. There may be a little bit of anxiety that nothing's going on externally. That's okay. Just remember that that's not going to happen forever. Things aren't going to be halted in your life forever. They're being halted for a very specific reason, and that's so that you can process all this. So try not to fear that. The other thing is there, in a certain sense, there is a lot going on. It's just there's just not a lot going on outside of you. There's plenty going on inside of you. So it's like there's plenty of stuff that you can deal with. With the Four of Cups reversed, in particular, sometimes it's the spirit world trying to contact us because they have information for us. So just be open to that as well. Other things may be closed off to you, other people, situations, etc., because there's information you need, and it's going to come from within, but the spirit world as well. You have to go within to find that, but it comes from all around us. Your helping spirits are trying to reach you. They're trying to give you nuggets of information. So the quieter things are around you, and the more centered you are, the easier those messages will come. And that's the other interesting thing too about just honing your intuition, which we all have. We're all intuitive. Don't let anyone tell you that's only a gift that some people have. We're all intuitive. It's a muscle you have to exercise like anything. And part of exercising that muscle is noticing which voices are voices of your intuition, which emotions are the emotions of your intuition, which impulses are the impulses of your intuition, and which ones aren't. And the thing is, the really loud stuff is not. I mean, the loud stuff is important to address because it's your emotions, old emotions, most likely because that's why they're screaming. But what they're saying to you isn't necessarily true. The emotion is real. What they're saying to you comes from a specific part in time, not the present moment. And so when you tell yourself, it's unsafe to feel anger, is it unsafe to feel anger, or was it unsafe to feel anger when you were 5 and punished for it? Because that's what that story is coming out of, right? So, be present and listen to the soft voices. Intuition whispers. When everything else settles and everything's quiet and you are with your breath and you are open and receptive and in the flow and in your body, that's when the intuitive messages come. They never come in this whirlwind. They always come when everything else is quieted. It's the quietest voice in the room, but you always know it when you hear it. And I think there's the potential here, if you can really rein things in and be centered, in order to listen, you're going to discover things that are going to make you feel so much better, or give you a lot more perspective and clarity on what you're going through, okay? So don't fear that. Open yourself up to it. And recognize it for what it is. And then your outcome this month. 7 of Wands. And this is basically saying that the journey's not over, because what you're dealing with is really powerful and intense and rooted, you know. But you're going to come out of this month, just like you came out of January, you're going to come out of this month one more step ahead, with increased healing, increased self-trust, increased empowerment, increased trust in the universe, increased intuition maybe, an increased ability to deal with and address your emotions, you know, a new belief system, right? All of these things are happening this month. That's all huge, enormous, amazing work. And so the 7 of Wands is saying, good job. Good job. There's more, but good job. You're more than halfway done with this cycle. And then you'll have a reprieve. Seek the little reprieves that you can in your day, the moments that you feel really good. Use that to anchor you and to listen to what else could come in. Celebrate every moment of joy this month. Being in your gratitude is going to make all of this easier. And you're going to end up at the end of this month at a place where you feel more strength and resolve. You feel more equipped to deal with them. I think they're going to stop everything that is scaring you right now. They're going to stop feeling like monsters and might feel more like pests, or something that you have a much greater ability to deal with. Okay, so really, really beautiful work. I hope you have a great February. If you would like to schedule a reading with me, please reach out to me. We can resource you. We can get more information, more clarity. And I would love to work with you and support you in any way that I can. Please hit like if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to see the next Cancer video in March. And I will see you guys then. Good luck. I love you. You can do this.